up, and welcome back to the 6th episode of the Creative Cult Podcast. I'm your host, Keegan.
And I'm Rodney.
And there we go. We got
Killed it.
And on this episode, we have a friend of mine and amazing comedian from the Twin Cities, Tom Chillstrom. So thank you for joining us, Tom Chillstrom.
Oh, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
And to start off, we're going to start with promoting things that you have kind of coming up. I'm going to give this to you so it sounds a little more genuine. You can kind of let them know when you're going to be playing. Got a lot of places, so just don't want it to seem
We can share the small one.
Thursday, March 19th, I'm going to be at Birch's in Lower Town. It's a comedy night there. It's the first comedy night they're having. So it's a showcase. Me and a lot of other good local comedians are going to be there in the Twin Cities. Excuse me. I don't know how many people outside of Minnesota get the Creative Cult podcast.
We're not that big yet.
We're international.
You never know.
International.
You never know.
It's like,
And then March 28th, that's a Saturday, I'll be at the New Hope Cinema Grill opening for Tim Bedore. So looking forward to that. That's just what's coming up this month.
and going from that, tell me all the comedians you don't like by name. Go.
Oh, man.
Short list off the top. One. Just one.
And he never worked again after that podcast. It was so weird.
Yeah. He started calling out names and stuff like that. It got real weird real quick.
But do you actually have a favorite place that you've played thus far?
Yeah, I mean, obviously with Minneapolis, and most people outside of Minneapolis know Acme Comedy Company downtown, or the Warehouse District, whatever you want to call it. But that's probably the biggest place, the funnest place too. I mean, it's a smaller room with low ceilings. It's really great for comedy, and most of the time when people go there, the crowds are just really hot, and
Yeah.
they're there to laugh.
What kind of acts? What kind of acts are coming through there? I mean, they'll have national people on tour coming through there.
Yeah. They just had Chad Daniels this last week and sold out shows, and
Cool.
So that's a good room. There's a lot of good rooms. Sisyphus Brewing down there by Dunwoody Tech has a really great comedy room as well. That's another favorite of mine. And then some open mic spaces and stuff. You know, they're kind of fun, but you're kind of messing around and just trying out new stuff and seeing what everybody else is working on. And so there's like the Midway mic on Tuesdays and at the Dubliner in St. Paul. That's a lot of fun. Red Menace open mic at Devil's Advocate downtown Minneapolis. That's a lot of fun on Tuesdays. Pretty much any night I go out, if I'm doing a mic and stuff like that, it's normally pretty fun. But they're, again, Acme's probably the number one place. Sisyphus is a close second. Comedy Corner Underground as well. So there's just a lot of great venues in town. So it's a nice place to be.
Do you guys
comedy goes?
Like as far as DJ and like entertainment? Do you guys does it go back and forth? Like sometimes the same spot will have, obviously on the weekends will be like a dance club, but then they'll switch it out during the day, like on a Thursday night for comedy.
Yeah,
we ever pass and brush shoulders with.
I see some bars and stuff, I think, that do that.
Yeah, there's a lot of bars that will have like at least a showcase night or something like that. Or
what was that place I watched you at? You were with Roy. What's Roy's last name? Stein.
Yeah.
It was in like Coon Rapids area.
Yeah,
I think.
Willie's Bar.
That was fun.
Yeah, that was a great open mic. That's where I first started doing open mics. Was there? The bar itself is now closed, but
bummer.
dude, that mic was insane. I mean, we used to just kind of mess around and just do. By the way, am I allowed to swear? I don't want to like put anybody off.
You can't, but we can.
Okay, fair
no,
enough.
I'm just kidding.
Fair enough. I mean,
I'm just kidding.
If we're talking about comedy, I mean, I swear on stage, so people should be aware of that. But
I thought we had like the Seinfeld comedian that was like everything was clean.
No, I'm not Brian Regan over here. I'm just going to be dropping the
Rattle
F-bombs here and there. We basically, Willie's was a place you could just kind of fuck around and just, if you wanted to work on some stuff, you could. If you wanted to kind of just talk about your week and your day even, and like kind of how messed up it was, you could just go out there and kind of vent. There's not a whole lot of places like that anymore where you can kind of just mess around and let stuff out. But it was really a place where you could learn a lot of stuff from a lot of different people. You had seasoned pros coming in there just trying new stuff. You had new people starting there. You had a bunch of like feature and host level people that were there and kind of again dicking around and doing what they needed to do to kind of make themselves feel better for a week and then going on from there.
Well, with that location, with it being one that you say you can just like dick around or fuck around, because I can swear, that is it just the acceptance of the audience to being like, are they more receptive, I should say, to just being like, this doesn't have to be polished. We're here to see the process of the comedy rather than like, it better be funny, because like, it's going to be different per crowd, per, demographic, whatever it is. A bunch of, 70-year-old white women are going to have a completely different humor pattern than, like a 21-year-old group of black guys.
Right. that place in particular, when there was actually audience members, they were kind of a wide range. It was, a lot of 30-somethings, 40-somethings, and then, older people kind of towards retirement. But I remember one story in particular there was an older lady in her about 90s, and then her two still elderly children. They had just come from Pride weekend, and they showed up, and they wanted to see comedy. And the first two comics were apologizing for swearing and like how their act was, and then they got really just bogged down by it. I just immediately got up there on stage, and I just started looking at it. I go, I don't know why anybody's apologizing to you guys. You guys have literally heard every fucking swear word, and you probably created all of them too, to be honest with you. And then they just started laughing, and then they just enjoy the rest of the night. So now, you diffuse the situation that has kind of presented itself, and then now everybody's having fun. But yeah, I mean, different demographics have different kind of levels of what they find funny and what areas they find funny.
There's a lot of reading the audience as well, which is the similarities with DJing and or any type of entertainer. You just kind of have to be able to pick apart the crowd and be like, okay, so where's the elephant in the room, that kind of thing.
Right.
How far do you let things kind of like get destroyed before you like pull them back? Right. Like with music, sometimes you'll play a song and you'll realize like 20 seconds in, you're like, it's a new song. I don't know if it's going to work. And I got to let these people see if they're going to follow their other people that are next to them dancing and just go with it and accept it. Or if they're going to be like, fuck this, I don't like this. So with comedy, how far do you allow it to go like, this joke isn't working, I got to kind of twist it? Do you let it go till the end and just go, fucking that's what it is? Or do you manipulate it at a certain point throughout the joke?
It's hard to change jokes on the fly.
True.
But there is a couple things when I'm getting into a joke, if I realize it's not going well, there's always a couple times you can just kind of bail on the joke, but you still have a good enough punch at the end.
Does it have to do with like calling out reactions in the audience? Can you play off that at that point in time, or just makes fun of somebody who's kind of not laughing at that point? You can be like,
sometimes. Yeah, I mean, I just did the show on Wednesday where it was basically it was a showcase for a lot of the newer comics in town, and then I got to close it out, as somebody who's gotten paid to do comedy before. So, and that one's over at Sisyphus again. That's New Kids on Tap. But doing that show, everybody who's in the audience is a friend of somebody who's already performed. So nice. I'm going up there at the very end, and they're not there to necessarily see me. They're still there to see their friends, which is fine. But then I go up there, and the first couple jokes worked, but not to the effect of what I was hearing earlier from the reaction that other comics were getting. So I just said, "Oh, I'm sorry. Did you guys not know what was happening here? That there's still going to be one more person?" And that got them kind of look like, oh, kind of understand that their reaction to me was not the same as it was for everybody else.
Right.
And so now it's like, okay, we can loosen up. We understand that, I'm still new to you guys.
Right.
So let's change this up. Let's, re-engage with what's happening right now. And then after I did that, they started to kind of loosen up and realize like, oh, okay, yeah, so he's doing the same thing that my friend was doing. Obviously, it's still comedy, but they then just, found me a little bit more, I don't know, funny, if you really will. I don't know. They were at least just paying more attention. So you feel like sometimes, again, that they're finally figuring out what they're doing as an audience. And so that's really the only time I'll do that is if I feel like somebody's gotten a better reaction to saying jokes that are similar, or at least, kind of similar setup and value to them, and then go from there. But that's really about it. I mean, and there's a couple times you bail on a joke just because you realize you're about halfway through and you're like, they hate. I think they're starting to hate me, not even just what's being said. I think
can you dig out? Can you dig out of that snowbank though? Like
normally, yeah. There's at least a couple jokes that I try to do where if I know if it's going south, there's a couple jokes I have that I can pull back into a set pretty much whenever, and it normally gets a pretty good reaction. And then now they're on my side or whatever.
So I mean, is it being as it's not improv so much? It's somewhat scripted, kind of like a set. I mean, you refer to it as a set.
Yep.
So I mean,
yeah, you piece it together.
Is it like mapped out? You have like, okay, so if I bail here, then we connect here. Is it that specific or?
It can be. I know that there's a lot of the pros that are doing like theater shows. If they have what they're gonna do, they have it all kind of set up where okay, I'm doing A, B, C. But if by that point I don't have anything going, I'm going to divert to E, then it's E, F, G over here, and then maybe I'll come back to D, or I'll just have another way back in after all these are working to get back
Is
into
this a bunch of fucking calculus going on up there?
Yeah.
I had no idea. Was that involved?
right.
So I've asked this question in the past to a couple other guests, but I think it really works best with you. And it's are you an introvert or an extrovert? Were you this? Did you change into this? Being a musician, we're very introverted. We produce things, but we're expected to be extroverts at certain points.
You're referring to yourself as we.
Well, I'm saying that, like Quid that's been on and Christian Baca, they're kind of same or similar. They say, there's a time and a place for everything. I've known you when you were younger and you were always kind of quiet, like at least from what I saw on like the school bus and stuff. And then finding out you were going to be a comedian, I'm like, how? Like, but then I see you and I'm like, what the fuck? What happened? Did something break in him that he just was like,
Yeah, I don't know. I know, growing up I was a little bit more shy.
Yeah.
And maybe a little bit more timid.
yeah.
But obviously, you know me growing up, and there was a lot of people who just would make fun of me for whatever fact there was, like red hair or the fact that, having an older brother too, like his friends would then just start going at me as well. So, I mean, that's how it was. And so, you kind of develop a shell a lot of times as a kid anyways. But yeah, I was, pretty shy, very introverted. And then, I don't know, I got to like college and started doing like the student newspaper and having to.
Where'd you go?
Well, I started at Nook Ramsey Community College in Coon Rapids.
Nice.
Go Golden Rams or whatever the hell they're called now.
Rep.
And then I transferred to a Christian college.
Oh, Northwestern?
Yeah.
What?
No, Crown College.
Okay.
Oh,
I used to live next to Crown.
Ben went to Crown.
This
Really?
is St. Bonnie right there, right?
There we go.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was
It's-
close
it's-
to Waconia as well.
It's weird that anybody actually knows what Crown College is, but
It's like The Village. M. Night Shyamalan's The Village. It's kind of like tucked in the
if
fucking woods.
it can be that. That's good. That's a good analogy. No, so I ran co-produced or edited the student newspaper at Nook Ramsey, and then when I went to Crown, they needed a editor in chief for that newspaper, so I took over there and or really even just got it going again and stuff. But you got to engage with people to get interviews or do whatever, and even ask to get photos. And so I kind of broke out of my shell there, and I like telling stories to people. So a lot of my friends were always saying like, "Hey, you gotta, you're telling stories to us. We all know what's going on. So, why don't you try it on stage?" And I didn't really want to ever do it because I was like, whatever. Like I'm not. I mean, I thought it was funny as far as those moments go of telling those stories, but I was like, I don't really feel like telling jokes on stage per se. I mean, I could do it. I could speak in public, no problem. But it was just one of those ones where it kind of developed into being more of an extrovert. And then, but most of the comics I know are way more introverted than people would really expect.
That's what I was gonna say. Is it different? Like, is it a different dynamic having a joke, like a group of dudes sitting at the fucking bar or something like that, and you're just going back and forth telling a joke versus on stage on a mic telling a joke?
Right.
Is it much different? Is it a lot different?
It's a lot different because when you're just kind of putzing around with your friends and you're just cracking jokes, I mean, like around a bonfire or at a house party or something like that, it's totally different because people are going to understand, one, who you're talking about normally. Like
Right.
if I was to share a story about Rodney growing up, or even just
They'd all be bad.
yeah, or if it was like about like just how like his family and my family like interacted and stuff over the years and stuff. I mean, it would be something different, but it would be a lot of those things where people who grew up with us would understand what we would be referring to. But when you take it on stage, you got to do things that are more
Set it up. There's a lot
yeah,
more
like
setup.
more universal. So like so this guy I grew up with.
Right.
Something vague. They don't need to know I'm talking about Rodney or whoever. I'm just saying a guy I grew up with.
How much of that stuff is actually legit though? Like
You
I
know,
listen
like,
to comedians. I'm like,
the other day, you always hear, the other day.
or this guy. Like, is that? Do you pull shit completely out of your ass up there and like refer to it as another guy? Do you come up with your own material that really didn't happen? Do you like create it?
Every once in a while. I mean, I do tell more stories than I do actual jokes. So
Yeah, cool.
I don't really have like the one-liner jokes where I'm just doing setup and punchline. So I'll tell more stories, but to get a reaction from the audience, you still want to have those punches in there. So you'll embellish a little bit. You'll lie here and there, but for the most part, what I'm talking about is still something that happened.
Right.
But then you just put those little bit of like tweaks in there where now it's gonna be funnier, or the fact of like
Because
just changing the story around where now I look like a bad guy, even if I was the good guy or something.
right.
You
I mean,
know?
that's what it's relating. That's what makes it funny to begin with.
Right.
Or like, I mean, you have to connect with the audience, and that's what it is.
Exactly.
So that's why it has to be real on some level, peppered in there.
Exactly.
So with comedy being put on multiple bills, where again, it's similar to music. I see a lot of commonality here. So I'm going to use the musical background, I guess. If I were to be playing, they said start at 10 o'clock at night, I would know I'm not going to play the hardest, the most popular stuff, right? So when you get put on bills and you're maybe with somebody that's a very different style, or have you ever been put on a bill that you're like, all these guys, like you were mentioning before, they all know each other. They got friends and stuff. They're going to be here, and it's a certain style or a theme throughout the night. And then they got this random, wild card guy that they're throwing in. Has that happened to you? And you're just like, I don't know what to do now, or do you just kind of rise above?
Yeah, there's a lot of times where you'll end up doing shows where whoever booked it is not necessarily familiar with everybody's style.
Sure.
And so you'll go in and you'll want to, be prepared as much as you can. So I have I do know most people who are performing comedy in the Twin Cities.
Is it big, or is it a very tight knit group? You clicky? You motherfuckers clicky?
Yeah, I mean, you can have cliques. I mean, there is cliques. I'm
He's
not going to
he's saying you're
everything.
not welcome into our clique if you're trying to be funny.
There's clicks and everything.
Yeah, there's cliques and everything. So there's groups of people that all interact with, but we're not say the best of friends or anything like that. But that's just how everything goes.
Sure.
I'm sure there's people in music that you know each other, but they have their group of friends that they're going to hang out with, and you're somebody who they'd hang out with and say hello to, but you're not necessarily going to be the guy who's sharing life stories like, oh yeah, so I need a kidney transplant, and they're going to be like, yeah, all right, that's somebody else's spot, man. Like, that's not us, But so there's that. But there's like 200 people at different levels in the Twin Cities doing comedy. Yeah, which is
See, that's the same. That reaction was like, hey, guess what? There are these many DJs chilling in town. I was like, what? No fucking way. There's a bunch of fucking local talent that just kind of hides in the shrubs here.
And I mean, that goes to this whole creativity thing that we're trying to do, is like, there's so many talented people and so many different things where you get that. It's like, huh? There's that many comedy stores or comedy shops or, and comedians. Like the person who's on the outskirts that goes once or twice a year, and they're just like, oh, it was a free Monday and I checked it out and it was amazing. And then you don't go again for like 6 months. You're like, and you see one of the same faces. You're like, well, there's got to be about 8 comedians in the state. That's about it.
right.
What was one, what was that, your friend that we saw that was very funny? Pat?
Oh, Pat is hilarious.
Yeah, so she went to school with him, and I was like, I think he said something about me on social media or something when we had broken up in the past. And I was like, fuck him, but I'm also like, well, he's funny still. I can't hate on him. He's funny.
He's very
Funny is funny. I don't care.
Yeah,
if
Pat Sussmilch is hilarious. He lives out in L.A. now.
but I thought he was like
hilarious.
one of the 8 comedians that we had in the state, and you were one of them. So I was like, but now knowing there's like hundreds of them, I'm like, well, how have I not seen these people?
How do you know him? Was it school or just because he's a comedian
just
as well?
No, yeah, just comedy. He was one of the guys when I first started going down to Acme on Mondays and not knowing this or like their sign up as far as how put a star by your name the first time you go there and you'll get on. So I was going there and I was, signing up, not getting on, didn't know about all this stuff. And then he was one of the first people that I saw doing comedy. I was like, this guy is funny. I mean, he's a different kind of cat than I am. And like, as far as his stage presence, he can be kind of closed off. He'll cover himself up with his arms. Then he'll just, talk like this in the microphone. And he's a funny dude, but I mean, his stage presence is completely different than mine. I'm trying to be more open and, engage with the audience just as far as my body language goes. And so I'll, hands are open. I'm not crossing my arms or anything like that. And I'm trying to speak more with, maybe use my hands because I'm a goddamn upper Midwesterner.
I was gonna say, do you study so I mean, that's the homework, right? So I mean, that's a lot of psychology and just like interpersonal relationships. Do you study that in the background? Did you take that in school, or like did you just kind of like brush up on it, like independent study a little bit?
I took like one psychology course in college, and that was it. I mean, but it's one of those things like you kind of understand how things work.
Right.
For example, the first set I ever did was at Acme in their contest. That was the first one, which nobody ever does. Nobody ever does the contest and then starts any kind of career out of comedy. So I did their contest, and I go down there, and the first thing I said was, I didn't know what story I want to tell you guys, so I'll let you guys decide. Do you want to hear about how I got sprayed in the face with mace or made a 1-year-old cry?
It's always pain, isn't it?
Yeah, it's pain. So everybody wanted to hear the physical story of pain. Like, tell us all the details about getting sprayed in the face with mace. So I just dangled that carrot out there, and there's like 8, 9 people who just yelled out like mace or something like that. And then I just pulled it back and say, I heard 1-year-old crying, and that got a big laugh, and then it was all downhill from there. But you dangle that carrot, and again, because psychology tells you want to hear the story about physical pain. Mental pain, as far as maybe like making a 1-year-old cry just because you look different than that 1-year-old, which is basically how that goes. Like this,
Just so judgmental.
Yeah, this 1-year-old was like basically like, this ginger's getting way too close to
Can't
me.
even talk, and he's already judging. It's bullshit.
like this far away from you, and there's like, no, I don't like this guy.
Do you think that it takes tragedy or like a skewed childhood or jilted? Do you think it takes something like that to be very humorous? Because I've heard a lot of comedians say, I had a weird childhood. I listened to like Theo Von or Bill Burr, or I think honestly the only one that I've listened to in the past that didn't say he had a weird childhood was like Chris D'Elia. He's like, no, I got a great childhood, great family and stuff, but like for the most part, it's like, yeah, I was sold into sex slavery or something. It's just something crazy. And then they build this like Eminem shell where it's just like nothing can. I've already been hurt as hard as I can be. What are you going to do if you don't laugh at my joke?
Right.
Is it like that for you, or is it like you had a great upbringing, or was there anything that just like stood out as like somebody teased you one time too many and you were like, fuck everybody. I'm going to prove you that I'm the fucking,
well, I think
funniest redhead
right.
Other than Conan O'Brien, other than Bill Burr, other than probably many other Carrot Top.
Oh, hold on. I think I'm better than Carrot Top.
He's creative with a lot of his stuff,
muscles have they his like his pecs and everything like overgrown his head. That dude's on HGH.
Yeah, he has to be on something, but that's not for me to say because we're not good friends and I can't speak.
Can't go to that, right?
No
disclaimer.
A lot of people always assume that or say that comics are broken people.
Yeah,
and I think that's true for a lot of people. But I mean, I had a pretty good childhood growing up. I mean, strict Christian household and stuff, and but I still had some scraps, especially with your brother. Like
shout out.
Yeah, I mean, but I got into arguments. I was a pretty fiery redheaded kid and stuff. I had anger issues and stuff. So like there's those things, and there's things as you get older. I mean, I started doing comedy when I was 29, and so Dad had died when I was 19, and then. There's always those things that you can kind of build off of, but I don't know if I was ever, say, a broken person. I mean, there's things that I deal with now, like I have depression and stuff like that, and I have things that I got to work through, but those are things that I think those are just things that, you get as you get older anyways. There's things that are going to, bum you out per se, and then there's things that are actually, mental health issues and stuff. But when you say that everybody has that kind of story, it's true to a degree. But I think it's how you want to build upon it.
Sure.
I think a lot of people, especially comedians, have that where they want to build upon it and they want to share their story.
Yeah, it's kind of everybody has it, but it's more vocal inside of a comedian because they are,
How do you respond to difficulty? It's either going to motivate you. It's funny. I just literally having this conversation with my sister. I was telling you, I have it introspective. It's like this shit happens. We're rolling stones.
Yeah,
like, you're gonna lose a chunk. You're gonna use that thing to steer, or you're gonna stop.
That's exactly right. Yeah, and I think especially comics, like a lot of people I know and have seen do a comedy, there's always something that they kind of model their life after, or some kind of like phrase or some kind of mantra that they have, and that helps them keep going. And with the comic mindset, Kyle Kinane said the best, where basically if you're walking down the street and you see something one way as somebody who's not a comedian, well, my job is now to walk past that same scene and see it from a funny and comedic standpoint.
So creativity was that Kyle Kniff that said that?
Kyle Kinane.
Oh, okay.
Who the hell is Kniff?
Kyle Kniff from Eminem. The fucking was that his attorney or something?
I know both.
So a thought just came to mind, and when you started
it's Carl Kniff.
Carl Kniff, damn it.
You were doing open mics and moving up and kind of learning your craft. When did you actually realize that you were funny?
Oh, I don't know.
Or has that not happened yet?
Yeah, I don't know. If you ask some people, I'm not funny.
There's always going to be that, though.
Those are haters, though. Yeah. And haters are going to hate.
But I mean,
no matter what.
To a point of where, people were coming up to you and saying, wow, I really like your stuff. And that was really good. It was entertaining.
Yeah, there's some flashes when I was a kid where I could tell, like, people enjoyed what I was saying or doing and, like, genuinely laughing at it. But there's also a lot of times, too, where you're just like, oh, that's just a stupid child. And we're going to laugh at a stupid child. But I don't know, probably sometime around 23, 24, something like that. I mean, honestly, like, it's hard to like pinpoint an exact year, but when you start all of a sudden now, going to house parties or events. Now you're kind of more like somebody who's diverting a crowd towards you just by sharing stories or whatever. And so I don't know, it's probably like mid-20s or something like that. Kind of realized that I could tell a story and be able to kind of mold things into how people might respond to them better.
And wit. I mean,
Right,
you've got to bounce it off other people and be like, okay, cool. So
Right.
like my ability to react to this is you got to be on your feet.
Yeah, exactly.
So
So
that's a huge part of it.
yeah, I mean, I don't know if I'm actually funny anymore, or if it's just now like repetition has kind of caused that to be ingrained in me. But
What do you do? What do you do to knock yourself out? If you do you ever feel? Can you self-diagnose and be like, oh, I don't know, man. Like I feel like I'm kind of getting comfortable in the jokes. Like what do you do to get yourself inspired again?
Well, most comics would tell anybody who's new that you have to record every set. At least get the audio off of every set. So, and as painful as it is, especially after bad sets, you still got to go back and listen to them. So the more times you go back and listen to see like what's actually happening.
We know that with the podcast. I'm like, why did we
I don't
say
listen to
that?
these
Yeah.
myself. Just disclosure.
Yeah, and that's one of those things too. I mean, I've been on some other podcasts before, and one of the things is like when you look back and you listen to them, like, why the hell did I say anything like that? That's a stupid thing to say. But and you do that with all the jokes and all the sets you listen to, and you think to yourself, man, why would anybody laugh at that? That wasn't funny in my own head now, but also too, the more times you hear it,
Right.
or the more times I say it, a joke, the more times I think to myself, like, man, this is somehow getting worse because you're no longer,
the shock factor's gone.
yeah, like you're no longer having fun with it, if you will. Like,
Yep.
when you first come up with a joke or an idea and you are trying to work through it, everything is super fun about it. And you get excited about doing those kind of jokes. But when you start getting booked and now you have to tell those jokes over and over and over again to have
Ooh.
the same kind of level of character with it and the same kind of emphasis on things, it gets so crazy in your head where you start thinking to yourself, man, this joke is it's not funny anymore because I don't like it. And it's like, well, you're not going to like it because it's no longer fun for you.
I have
Right.
to ask this question, but like, so one of I respected
Wait. Why do you? Who told you have to ask this question first of all?
myself. My
Okay.
multiple personalities. One of the
Okay.
other ones from from Glass, another Shyamalan. I must fucking Shyamalan kick apparently. Anyway, yeah, my ex-girlfriend's father, I had huge respect for him, and he was extremely successful. And I asked him, I was like, how? Like how the fuck are you able to have these toys and all this shit? And he's like, don't ever make a hobby your career. I was like, oh fuck, I did that wrong. Looking back now, but I mean,
Right.
at the same time, like, so that's the same kind of thing, right? I mean, if you start looking at the comedy a little bit more, do you see it? Do you like comedians? Like, is it like, oh shit, I don't know, like, because comedy is kind of a hobby. It's like something that most people just
Right.
do on the side, but doing it regularly and you start getting booked. You said that, like, as soon as you start getting booked, it changes things a little bit.
Right.
I think that's probably true though, but also that's not what anybody that's massively successful has done, right? Like I think like we were using Post Malone earlier. A lot of these people are like, I'm fucking all in. It's this or homelessness, right? And like
Right.
it takes that. So I think it's
It's
can be both.
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. And I still work a full-time job and still do comedy on the side. So that is one thing though. If you make a certain amount of money, and I've had conversations with guys who headline all over the country and stuff, and travel regularly, and kind of like what their philosophy is. It like what's the money amount you got to make per year or even per month. Like one guy was
Support it.
yeah, and he said that there's ways you can do that kind of stuff. Like the more shows you produce, or run or host or whatever, like open mics in town, somebody still has to get paid for those open mics to happen, right? So the venue still has to pay for that, night of comedy, really, because even if it's an open mic and it's going to last maybe 2 to 3 hours or whatever, which is a long night of comedy, somebody still has to get paid for that. So if you can have a night where you're, successfully running a mic and people are going there and they're getting their stage time and people are enjoying it and people are coming out and they're buying drinks, that venue now sees that there's worth in that. So, there's avenues where you can make more money. There's definitely going to be years and months where you're going to have less money because if things get canceled or bars close or establishments close or whatever.
Viruses come through, coronaviruses.
Yeah, I can't wait until everything shuts down in the state of Minnesota just because we got one case here now and they're just
Yeah.
going to start shutting down the
Yep.
corona.
Quarantine.
Yeah.
Stay the fuck in your
But
basement.
that's a true thing now. Like if somebody was to actually get it, and I always tell people if you're sick, this is just a side note. So if any comics are ever out there and you're going to an open mic or a showcase you're not getting paid on and you're sick, I will literally punch you in the throat. Like it's the worst because I literally got
chop like you're
yeah,
just
like
cut 'em
I
right
keep
here.
getting sick because of the idiots who they're sick and now they're causing everybody else to get sick because we're sharing.
Did you see that meme? The meme
Oh,
where it's
yeah.
like, if you have the coronavirus, the normal flu, someone's just in bed. The coronavirus, hopping on a fucking plane.
Right.
It's like, dude, what, how? Like, if I'm sick, I'm out, dude.
Exactly.
I'm horizontal.
Yeah. I mean, I had like a couple times this winter where I've spent a week at home or going from work to home or whatever where I'm not doing anything because I'm sick with a cold and I don't want to get everybody else sick because now it's slowing down everybody's progress and stuff. But yeah, it just.
You should be doing the exact opposite, though. You should be getting really sick right at the kind of end of where you're getting sick, right? And just go to as many open mics as possible. Get everybody fucking sick, right? So there's nobody to compete. And fucking next week, book.
God, you're a cynical asshole.
Right?
I
Look at
mean,
that.
that's not how
Fuck
it works,
'em,
man.
dude.
That's not
No,
how it
dude,
works.
fuck
The
'em.
competition drives the levels, right? Though.
They'd be like, well, the only comedian in Minnesota, Tom Chillstrom.
For a whole week for every show. An hour and a half of just Tom Chillstrom.
Tom goes
Chillstrom-
on and does the goose
Tom
step down
Chillstrom
the street
is the
afterwards.
coronavirus.
No, but that goes a long ways though too. Like we're and I know it's harder for a lot of people to say don't go out or I'm not going to go out because I'm sick. But when your grind is always just doing mics and showcases, that's one thing. But if your grind is getting work and getting paid for stuff, that's a whole nother thing. And that's a big difference between somebody who's a hobbyist, like you were saying, like they come out once or twice a year. Somebody who's
I got a photographer buddy who's like that. Yeah. He's
Yeah.
literate children now. Yeah.
yeah, but like you're like one or
Shots fired.
you're like one or two times a year doing it. You're just a hobbyist. You know what I mean,
Right.
You're still around. People still kind of respect you enough to put you on a mic whenever you ask or whatever. And a lot of times it's people who've done it for a few years doing that. Then there's open micers who are generally new people and they're just trying to get into the hobby or the habit of doing this every night or whatever. Then you got people who are regularly working, host level, feature level, headliners and stuff. And those are the ones who are making the money, generally have the better sets. They're the ones who are going to get priority at mics when they show up. And that's what everybody's kind of building towards, unless you're kind of just saying, like it's not a huge thing in my life. But I mean, yeah, I'm looking for different, full-time jobs just to be able to say, okay, well, I'm going to get X amount of PTO. I'm going to be able to use, half of that just to be able to do some road gigs here and there. Or, I got to jet out early on a Friday, so they're going to be okay with me doing that. So that's really the thing, is that since most comedy happens on the weekends, you kind of get away with having a full-time job and then still doing this on the
Right.
side.
Kind of
but-
fuels it to an extent. I
Yeah.
almost imagine it's like
Right.
you pull material from your job. I imagine all the time, or just the fucking just the grind.
It depends on what kind of job you have. I mean, most of the people, since I'm sure some of my coworkers are probably going to listen to this, they're not funny. You're
shout
not
out
funny.
coworkers.
Please stop telling me jokes I should stay on stage because they're all street jokes. Stop being that asshole. No
Oh,
one
dude.
cares.
Is that why you had such a version of that mom joke when I kicked it out? Or their
Yeah,
mom
'cause
jokers at work?
Mom jokes are terrible, man.
Yeah, I felt that was some pain right
so
there.
there are a lot of people that think they're funny, and it is a skill set that needs to be refined and worked on. You said you've been doing this for what, like 7 years? You said you started with 29. You're what, 36 now?
36, yeah. So about 7.5 years now total.
So it's not something that you just go like my friends will sometimes say I'm funny. Sometimes they'll say I'm a piece of shit. Most of the times it's the latter. But I always wonder, am I actually funny in that moment, or am I regurgitating something I heard somewhere else? Is it a comedian? Is it a movie thing where I'm like, alrighty then. I just ripped that off from Jim Carrey, and maybe it worked for the moment, but it's not me creating real material. It's not me really being humorous. Again, it's regurgitation. So when you're a comedian, you have to be really mindful of not using other people's material because
Right.
you get called out immediately on that and you can destroy your career. So what are some pieces of advice other than hopefully, I know you're not the person that does that kind of stuff, but what are some pieces of advice that you can give to people after 7 years in that are maybe like, I'm funny, I think I could do something with this. Like, what do I do? How do I get to the next step? How do I get to 7 years in and still being funny and still making new content and not stepping on the toes of other people that are, previously humorous?
And who do you network with? That's huge, right?
Yeah.
Like, how do you get the context? Because do you
Right.
go through other
Make some
comedians?
people that can compete against you in the next 6 months after hearing this.
Yeah, fire them up.
Yeah, no. So there's obviously the parallel thinking is one thing that people kind of run into where something comes up, something new. Obviously, one thing that we're seeing a lot of with coronavirus or whatever is everybody's making the jokes about coronavirus beer.
Yeah.
And it's
Oh shit! I should have had some Corona beer just for stupidity.
It's so dumb.
And the memes.
Yeah, and it's so terrible, and I hate everything that everybody's doing about it. But that's one of those things where it's like, okay, that's just a hack thing to do. But like regurgitation can happen. You know, like I you hear so many comics, and so sometimes things just kind of stick in your mind where like, oh, I want to say something similar to that. Well, then you end up saying the exact same thing, not necessarily the same joke, but you'll steal like a part of something because it works in what you're doing. And I try not to do that, but I know it's happened before. But and then that person just says, "Oh, hey, by the way, so I've been doing that in a joke." Like that's where I heard it. Like, and then you're like, "Oh shit!" Like, well, now I got to rewrite that one, which is not a big deal, to rewrite something. But that's why you have the open mics, and that's why you have all that stuff. But if you're doing one-liners, that's I think way harder because stories I tell are still my stories, and so no one can steal stories from my childhood.
Right.
I mean, my brother could probably say some of the same stories or whatever. You could probably say some of the same stories and stuff, like Chris could probably say some of the same stories and stuff just because of where we grew up and the nature of what we did.
Yeah, and we're all related. We're all somehow related.
Yeah.
6 degrees of separation.
Right. And that's one of those things.
Brother, mom, Chris over there.
Right. But so like when I tell stories like that, like I know it's going to be on a different level for a lot of people. But again, it's telling something that I find funny and what I find can be humorous to other people. And so when you're regurgitating things, it's fine because I've been at concerts before where somebody the lead singer or whatever is just regurgitated something they saw in a meme or something online or whatever,
right.
And they're just cracking jokes, but everybody's loving it. I'm just like, oh, this is such a waste. Oh, like I just get so frustrated because I see how that is. And I know it's just the banter that a front man or whoever or DJ might be having with the audience. And that's good, but, I get mad because I'm like, oh, that's not them being funny. That's just saying things that they heard. So it's different when you're trying to actually be a comedian because it needs to be you. And I know I've told plenty of people that basically if you can do a simple Google search and somebody's videos coming up as far as, something on YouTube where a comic's already done it and then posted it. It's like, it probably wasn't a good joke anyways. You're probably not, thinking for yourself. You're probably thinking along the same lines as the masses then. So
the good ones aren't on YouTube. Those are the ones that they'll like reserve. You keep that in your pocket until you're up on stage and just give it to that audience and keep that one. You don't share that.
You try to, but the way content goes, there's always that thing where, the first one to record it and release it gets it.
Right.
Because I had a joke that was very similar for a long time to another guy in town, and it was just a YOLO joke. But it came from the same idea, and it was, again, parallel thinking. The jokes themselves were totally different, but if either one of us would have put it on YouTube or whatever, then the other one really couldn't have done their joke then anymore.
Right.
And again, they were different, but it was still based around like YOLO as a thing.
Right.
And so, and again, this is a long time ago.
Dude, I watched that. I actually was doing a recap of like, just things that I'd seen, and I watched that like 2 days ago. It was good.
Yeah. Shut the hell up. That's fun.
With it being, so we record these on Sunday. It's Sunday today. They'll be out for you guys to watch and listen on, watch on YouTube, listen on Spotify, Google Play, Stitcher, pretty much anywhere you get podcasts. But we record these on Sunday, and today is National Women's Day. So, being a comedian, who are one or some of your favorite comedian? Yeah, here let's hear the most sexist joke you've got. No, who are your favorite female comedians? And then going further into that, how we kind of just touched on like a sexist joke. Are there any jokes that are off limits to you?
So my favorite female comedians are ones mostly local, like Shannon Paul, Tiffany Norton, Maggie Ferris, Karen Pickering. Like those are just off the top of my head.
What stands out to them? What makes them your favorite? Is it their style? Is it how they refine things? Is it their crowd play?
Yeah, so like those four are they're very well rounded. So they have good material. They have good stage presence. They're engaging with the audience. They are willing to talk with the audience afterwards. So they've been able to build their fan bases and stuff, and whether that be through other mediums along with comedy or whatever it happens to be. But they're also very genuine and nice people. So I've had the opportunity to work with all four of those women. Amy Miller, who's based in LA now, but she's started in Portland. I did a couple of weekends with her at well, the club's no longer around, but it was at Royal Comedy Theater. But
Was that here? Did
yeah.
she come here, and that's how you rush?
Yeah, that
shoulders?
was down in Hopkins.
Okay.
And
Cool.
and she's again a nice person. So that's really the kind of thing is that people I genuinely enjoy, I've gotten to work with. It's also because they're nice people, and those are the ones I most enjoy working with and most enjoy. But there's Joan Rivers she was so great. Gilda Radner as far as comedic actors. She was always so funny and.
Wait, Joan Rivers as in the talk show host?
Yeah, I mean she was a stand-up.
Oh, I didn't know this.
Yeah, some of her stuff.
Did you know this?
No.
Really?
It's awesome.
Oh wow, no, she some of her stuff.
Was she dirty or was she very clean?
She was very dirty.
Because she seems
Really?
like she's got a personality, just her talk show stuff.
No,
Like,
That's awesome.
there was a comic actually in town, Scotty Romfo. He doesn't do comedy anymore, but when I first started doing comedy and going out to mics and stuff like that, he'd be out there and stuff too, and he has like 2 arm amputations and like one of his legs is amputated like partially.
Whoa.
And so, but he used to go on tour with Joan Rivers, and he would come up with some of the dirtiest stuff, talking about like backstage and stuff like that. And then, but these were some of the things that basically she would have said herself on stage too. And I mean, so she was hilarious. I mean,
She shifted gears. I mean, you could maybe see it in her eyes there. Maybe, I don't know if you look close.
Yeah, no, but she was hilarious. Gosh, I feel terrible like not being able to come up with more women now. But
I mean, that's a good grip. That's more comedians than I thought there was in total.
Yeah,
You just
once
said
again.
in female comedians.
I will say this though, actually, she doesn't live in Minneapolis, but she started here, and she actually started off as an improver and then moved over to stand up. But Chloe Radcliffe is currently writing for, I believe it's the Tonight Show. She's gonna be huge. She knows how to form jokes very well, and every time she gets critiques with things, she takes everything.
How old is she?
She's like 20, I think like late 20s now.
Young talent, yeah, coming up.
Yeah,
Nice.
she's gonna be huge.
Nice.
So
Going into that, and I don't want to cut off the fact that we said, are there any jokes that are just off limits? But going into age, I'm compiling the questions here. But so again, tell us, are there any jokes that are off limits? And if there is, but then after that, age, do you think people need more experience in life, that people are funnier when they start as a comedian being in their late 20s where they're like, oh, I've experienced the bar scene, I've experienced, heartbreak and all these things, or somebody that's like 18 is just passionate about it and rips and rocks with it? So are there any jokes that are off limits? And then that.
I think the most I think that anybody would say as far as jokes that are off limits, anytime you're talking about somebody who is disabled in any way.
Sure.
But that's not to say that you can't find humor in that. Now, those are the ones that get most people in trouble. Tom Segura had his midget joke where that got him into a lot of trouble.
Ari Shafir's got the whole thing with Kobe that people are just losing their mind over.
Too soonish.
Yeah, I mean, so anything, that can be construed as too soon. One thing that always kind of comes up, because people feel it's something that they again can take power away from, but rape jokes, anything dealing with mental handicaps or even like now mental health as well.
That's just crazy because
does it make it more difficult? Yeah.
Yeah, because obviously the more things that become taboo to any group of people, then the fewer things you have to talk about. Now, there's people who don't, they'll totally skirt that idea that there's anything that's taboo. No, these are the things that I won't do in my act just because I don't personally find a way that I can make them funny where I'm not either plagiarizing somebody else or being overly offensive for the sake of being offensive. So, because I don't try to go out in there, and again, I'll swear during my sets or whatever, but I don't go out there with any idea that I'm going to purposely try to offend anybody. And I know that there's some people who have no problem with going out there and just offending whoever the hell is there because they're my jokes, they're my stories. I'm going to tell them how I want to.
That's such a fine line. You kind of almost have to dip in that a little bit.
The whole like, I don't care. Even though you can sell yourself as I don't care, you can not care in your bedroom to yourself. And if you make enough people just know that you don't give a shit, then they don't give a shit and nobody's going to go to your shows.
Yeah, exactly. So if you're just out there to offend people or to cause controversy, you're probably not a good comic anyways. You're probably just going for the fact of like, okay, well, if I post this one set on YouTube or whatever, I'm probably going to get 1 million hits. And now
shock rocker
I'm
style.
going to be famous because of this one video.
Right.
which is a load of shit, really. Like, you are only doing it because you want to be famous, not to actually provide a release for people. And that's really what comedy is.
Oh,
Like,
it's
you go
interesting.
there
Good,
and people want to laugh. So
Right.
if you're providing something that's dirty and grotesque just for the sake of being dirty and grotesque, people aren't generally going to go there and be like, yeah,
It's kind of tasteless.
I just love that guy, man. I mean, he
Yeah.
made me feel like shit the whole time, but man, that was so great. That was so worth. No, like, no one has that idea going into a show, or they shouldn't anyways, in my opinion. But if you're purposely going after things that you find are off limits from the wide spectrum of people and then trying to just live in that area, that's fine. But you got to find something that's tasteful about it. Like an Anthony Jeselnik can find humor in a lot of that stuff, but I can't find the humor in a lot of stuff. Personally, I'm not offended by anything he says, but it's just not something that I'm going to go out there and try and find for myself or for what I want to do as a joke or material.
Right.
But then about age and stuff like that, I started when I was older, but there's, people I've met that have started when they were teenagers still, like Mike Lester, who just moved, but started here. I mean, he was starting when he was 16. And
Damn.
so his parents would go with him to bar open mics, and and then he would leave like right after his set. He was doing Acme
I get
open mic.
so much respect for like kids that like get a kick off early.
Yeah.
On anything. I
Yeah.
mean, I was back in the day. Like,
Right.
I was just trying to break rules and fuck off. Like
Right.
there was no motivation with any type of like direction.
Exactly.
So
and
any kid gets it. I'm like,
yeah,
dude.
so he got really, really funny and got really, really good, and people started paying attention to him like very young. But then he even kind of had this like point where he kind of hit a peak, and then realized like, okay, now I can't tell like teenage jokes. I got to start telling more adult jokes.
Justin Bieber problem is that big? That's
Kind of. I mean, I don't know. I don't know the Beeb, if you will. So I mean, I think he's kind of a doofus, anyways. But and again, that's personal opinion. If anybody out there wants to shout out at me, it's at Tom Chillstrom. So
his agent listens to this. No.
come at me if you will. But no, I mean, I think you just hit a level where now you're starting to get into adult stuff. So now you're going to start talking more about adult problems and situations.
You don't have a lot of experience if you're that young.
Yeah, but like, and Mike would say too, and I'm not like bursting his bubble because he's probably never going to come on this podcast or anything like that. But like he had a bit of a rough childhood, so like for him, he already had some of the material kind of cooked in already, and it worked for him. And there's other guys that are younger, like this guy James Stanley in town. He's a very funny dude, and he started when he was really young, but he would tell you that and him and I have had this conversation where he started probably a little too soon because he didn't necessarily have the adult material to go with it.
Right.
So like people aren't going to pay to see your teenage act
Right.
because there's no teenage audience.
Because 21 and up, they're drinking in there, whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the
Like, I
venues
don't
you're
care
at.
about
Yeah.
the prom, dude. Who cares?
Yeah.
Oh, you having trouble asking a girl to prom? Good.
That's why
Congrats.
top 40 music,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like when you get older, you start listening to like jazz and,
Yeah,
because
like,
you
you
don't
can't-
connect with so much with the top 40 problems anymore. You're like, I'm
exactly.
good now. Just chilling.
Exactly. So, I mean, for me, again, starting a little bit later, like mid to late 20s is probably fine. But some people start when they're in college. I'm like, good. More power to you.
The
I
mic,
kind of wish I did, but
when did you get that, dude?
it's kind of like a work in progress still. Like I get stuff for the state of Minnesota. If I don't know if you guys can see it on the camera.
That's
there or
fire.
not,
Who did it? Shout out to him, dude. I like the Minnesota in there.
This is from Tommy Bernovic, which
Oh, he's a tattoo artist. That's right. Yeah.
So he's my guy now, but we're working on some of this stuff. But yeah, this is basically like my little homage to comedy here on my arm.
That's dope.
Yeah, except now I'm trying to avoid people at work because some idiot lady, and I will say her name next time
Ooh.
on stage and so that
Ooh.
she started singing to it the other day, and I'm trying to make this into a bit now because I'm just like, yeah,
That was going to be where I was leading to, so
Yeah.
I'm glad that you went there.
Yeah, no,
I was
so-
like, do you ever just
so I, it's just making the bit now, but I'm like, yeah, so she just sang into the microphone.
saying to your? It's not quite on the bicep.
No, it's like my elbow area,
yeah,
basically.
you're just
like,
singing into my elbow.
Yeah.
I mean, all right,
Like, what
speak
the-
to the elbow.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
so we do a segment. This silly goose shit we're talking about here, singing into a dude's arm. So we do segments, and one of the segments we do is random questions. So prior to having the guests on, we kind of compile just superfluous questions, and then while we're doing it, sometimes we'll get inspired, or Chris will get inspired while we're doing this, and he'll ask other questions. So these are a couple of them that we have right off the bat, and they're going to be stupid, I assure you, because that's what their intent is. But the first one we have is, I guess this one's not that stupid. Chris, Chris must have actually felt good about himself for a little bit. He must have.
Couple.
Yeah. Anyways, the question is, what do you absolutely love about yourself other than your tattoo?
Oh God. See, this is the problem with being a comedian is because we talk about ourselves, but we don't want to give too much away about ourselves.
Because that's fuel.
Yeah, it's fuel, but also no one ever thinks to themselves like, well, what do I actually love about myself?
I know.
You know?
But it's a great question, right?
It's a great
Put you
question.
on the spot.
We'll
I thought of that when I was.
here. We'll do it.
kidding.
We'll go down the line. We'll do this just so you get some energy. What do you love about yourself?
I had
Daniel?
a client's daughter like do this, stand with a sign in the Minneapolis Skyway, and made a video out of it.
What do you love about yourself? He's
I like that
trying
I'm
to get, he's
adaptive.
trying to go on
I like that I'm adaptive. I kind of treat life like an improv show. I will fucking jump into weird situations and just do shit. So, I mean, I enjoy that about myself. And I guess I can't even give myself credit there, which is kind of adverse to the question because it's more like my mother's side of the family where I get that from. So you can kind of trace things back, right? Like you are just the assemblage of people and traits that are passed to you.
Cool. I'm going to make it short. I have really thick skin. I think it's like something will bother me and I'll get super fucking annoyed, but then it's just like, I don't give a fuck. Why do I give a fuck? That's what
Does it
I'm
just roll
pretty
off?
proud of. Yeah.
Huh. Jeez. I almost feel like I should just steal both of those. I'm like, yeah, I got thick skin. Fuck yeah.
What kind of comedian is Tom really?
yeah,
Just
no.
fucking copping some style.
I don't know. I guess physically and stuff, you know, like got made fun of quite a bit as a kid, but you know, the red hair and stuff like that kind of makes me more unique. But you know, that's really about it as far as like physicality and stuff.
The uniqueness you've embraced. You love the uniqueness.
Yeah, I mean,
That's dope, dude. Fuck
you
yeah.
know, again, trying to just make bits about stuff, you know, but like I know that 1% of the world's population has red hair and blue eyes, but you know, I'm not saying
You're part
that
of the 1%.
I'm not saying that makes me a unicorn or anything like that because that's still like 77 million people and stuff like that. But I am just saying like it makes me a little bit more unique than some other people, except
Love it.
if I'm in Europe or North America. But that's beside the point. I don't know. I genuinely like how I can kind of just riff on people, like, and be good natured, I guess. You know, sometimes with open mics and stuff, you know, you get new people or whatever that are kind of nervous about it. So to try and engage them a little bit more about like maybe how they're going to be perceived or whatever, you know, I've been able to just kind of roast some people and then still get away with it because they understand like there's a point of being more genuine with them afterwards. So,
Yeah, so you're a comedian with a heart, dude. And that came out when you're like not the shock rock thing. Like you actually have like
I
what's
try
it,
not to be
scruples.
Hey, I try not to be a dick all the time.
You're not an
Like,
unscrupulous
yeah.
comedian. is
That would
what it
be
is.
very difficult. I mean, even the past podcast I had is I looked back and I was my co-podcast mate, who I liked way more than I like the one I got now. But I mean, it's just, you know, you got to work with what you got.
I guess.
But I look back and I would be like, people would be like, you're really fucking hard on him. And it's hard to not like be insulting or hurtful to somebody because you don't think you're doing it in your head.
Right.
And it's like, you got to really be mindful of like how other people are seeing things. Like that's a job in itself.
It is. But again, as long as I can kind of stay nice to people, I guess that's kind of.
Yeah. You've always been pretty cool dude though. So like,
I try my best.
I don't think
to
you've
be
ever
honest.
been mean to me. Maybe I'm trying to think. You never beat me up.
No,
It's mental. The mental
No,
warfare
yeah.
is usually far more damaging.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you could sock people. I had to learn this because I have a sister, and she's 5 years younger, and she ruled me from birth. But I could never physically. I mean, she was a girl, and she's 5 years younger. I can't ever really, you know, battle necessarily. But it was a mind game. So it was, you know, there's spiders, you know, and that kind of thing under her bed that are gonna eat her. She's gonna eat this many. You know, it was like just seeing
That's
that
terrible,
shit.
man.
That's terrible. It's really terrible.
no. For me, actually, when like you know, growing up, one thing I was always afraid of was if I got into a fight, would I leave marks? You know, like would I leave bruises and stuff like that? Because again, you know, and I've had scraps with your brother, and even me and my brother, we got into scraps. But
Who hasn't Rob fought? Who hasn't he fought?
well, here's the thing.
I mean, who hasn't beat Robert up?
I never wanted to punch anybody in the face, and so because I knew that would leave like a mark or a bruise or a cut or something like that you're going to see. So like I never punched my brother in the face once, even though I wanted to a billion times. And then my mom even said when we got older, like, "How did you never punch your brother in the face?" I go, "I could have punched him in the face. God, why did you let me know?" I'm like, I could have got away with some shit.
Strategically avoiding it, and
Right.
you could have. Right. Mom gave you the green light.
Yeah, but as an adult, not like as a child. If she would have told me as like a teenager, just go off and light him up one time, I would have done it.
Right.
So here's question 2.
That changed the path of things.
If you were to pursue a career in Hollywood, would you be a method or a character actor?
Oh, that's a good
I'm
question.
gonna be honest. I don't know what a method actor is. Was
It's
this
an
Chris?
actor
Chris
that does a lot of meth.
Oh,
That's not
okay. So
That's
this is a Kevin question. What's a method actor? Does anybody know? I don't know what that is.
Method actors. I think the difference between it is what I know. I don't know which one's which, but I know that one of them is they just play themselves all the time, like Michael Cera. Just as fucking Michael Cera in any movie he does. Like he's just his own personality. And then there are the people who will actually get into character. So I believe that's probably a character actor.
Okay, yeah. So which would you be?
Well, my understanding of method actor was is somebody who, when they're taking on a role, they try and get involved with that role. You know, like Demi Moore, when she did striptease, was like in the strip clubs, partaking, like
The
watching
method.
it. Yeah, and so like that would be like method.
Sure.
And like character actor, yeah, I think that's probably more along like
Ryan Reynolds, I feel
Being
like is
Same
just
dude in
himself and always
everyone.
shit.
Yeah.
yeah, like I think that kind of can lead to typecasting, but I'd probably be more of a character actor, just because I've already done some acting, and you can kind of start doing some goofier stuff here and there, and because if people know what they can expect of you, that's one thing, but I think that kind of can lead down to like a line where you're all of a sudden now Jim Carrey doing a bunch of like, oh look, it's The Mask, and then oh it's Dumb and Dumber, and oh look, it's the
Pet
cable guy.
Detective,
Like, oh
and-
Jesus Christ, man! Like,
Who's the actor that did that he's the 70s dude. He had Mini Me. The fuck is his name?
Austin.
Yeah, who
Mike
is it?
Myers.
Mike Myers.
Yeah.
Same thing. Like you get to see Mike Myers in anything. He's that guy now.
he's branched out though. I mean, like he was in a couple like Inglourious Bastards. He was in, and people didn't know he was in that one.
Really?
See that's
Yeah.
what happens to you. You turn invisible then. You're
Exactly.
Like, wait, I was no, he can't be. He's always whatever his name is.
So what genre of actor would you be, or like what would you be in? Would you be in comedy? Would you be in, like rom-coms? And if you were, would you be like the lead guy, or would you be the token black guy in the background, or like what role would you embody?
I couldn't play the token black guy. I don't know if you see my color or not, but I'm definitely not black.
The Irish guy in every movie.
You know the sad thing is somebody told me the other day, because I wasn't trying to be intimidating or anything like that, but I was just squared up at a bar, and somebody's like, "You look like you could have been in The Irishman." I go, "Thanks." The movie's already made.
I mean, you
but,
look pretty intimidating, to be
yeah.
honest. And then you're like this nice dude. You're
right.
like,
I know it's scary to some people. They don't know how to handle it. They just think I'm going to murder them
just
later.
confused.
I don't know. I couldn't really probably pull off rom-com, because I don't think there's a lot of people that would believe that I could get like a I don't know who used to do rom-coms back in the 90s.
What is
like
that?
Jessica Biel.
I
used to
know
do
what the
it.
fuck that is.
Yeah.
Romantic comedies?
Oh, okay. Rom-com.
Chick flicks, if you will.
Okay.
Yeah.
Chick flicks. There we go.
Not to be,
that clicks.
Not to be insensitive or anything like
To
that.
National Women's Day.
Right,
Yeah,
National
chick
Women's
flicks.
Day. What an asshole.
Rom-coms.
Our three
No,
female
Have you heard
listeners.
rom-com? Okay. I'm lost then. I'm under
That's
a
what
rock.
happens when you live in front of a video camera for 25 hours. Right?
under a rock.
I probably would go more towards comedies. Obviously, it's something where I could be, either like what they refer to as a straight man. So you're, doing a comedy, but you're not coming off as necessarily the funniest guy there. So you're being somebody that they're playing against. Like a good example is like Rob Lowe's character in Tommy Boy, right? So that's the straight man in there.
Okay.
Because Chris Farley and David Spade are basically playing off of like what that guy is as the antagonist, and now they're the protagonist, if you will, to try and win the company. If
Rob
you haven't
Schneider's
seen
the
Tommy
shit.
Boy, like I'm not being a dick here, like
Down by the river.
Yeah.
Have you? I could see you like perfect role. I could see you be in Will Sasso's in Will Sasso's role in Super Troopers 2.
Oh,
Where it's like they're Canadians, and I could totally
Did
see
you want
that, 'cause
one or
you're
two
like
better?
you're like this fucking huge dude,
right.
where it's like you're intimidated by this guy. You could be like a Mountie, but then also like humorous. I could
Right.
see that be like a perfect role for you.
One or two better.
One. Come on, man.
One's way better,
thank
yeah.
you.
But there's a lot of good one-liners and like little parts.
Has
I
there
think, of
ever been a
that are really
two
fun.
that was better?
Ooh, that's a good.
Rush
question.
Hour 2.
Wait,
I mean, I'm just saying,
Ooh.
like,
That's okay.
was it
Damn,
bad?
dude, that was quick,
Is
too.
Bad Boys 2? Is that good?
I
or
haven't
no?
seen it.
I haven't seen it either.
The clip where
It's
he's
probably
like,
not good if it has.
that one's really good, actually.
Is that-
But like the Bad Boy series is pretty good.
yeah.
Oh, there's 3 of them, right? There's
Rush
Bad
Hour
Boys,
2
Bad
was
Boys
a
2,
fast
and now like
response.
the
That's-
Badder
dude.
Bad Boys or whatever the new
Yeah.
one is.
I couldn't think of one.
Have
That
you
was
ever
good.
thought about being an actor? I mean, comedy and acting sometimes go hand in hand.
Yeah, I mean, I've been able to do a few things here and there. Well, just to toot my own horn here, technically I am an award-winning actor. So no, last year's Twin Cities 48-hour film festival, I was asked to be part of the program, and then our film ended up getting best ensemble acting.
Was
So-
it what genre?
Well, it was, I mean, it was definitely
It was
comedy based, but it was
pornography.
It was supposed to be like the category they got was technically like I think like adventure or something like that.
Okay.
But I mean, you can take that however you want. So like the adventure was basically like two brothers, or it was that's what it was. His family was the category that they were in. So, but they made it with a family movie ish, if you will, or like family was what they were dealing with, but then had like a comedy twist on it. So, but yeah, it was really funny actually. Like when I watched back to it, I'm like, damn, like that's really good actually.
That's
Like,
awesome.
not necessarily my part.
How'd you get connected with that?
Two comedians were the ones writing it and stuff, and
Cool.
then there's other comedians that were acting in it, and so
Just writers. Yeah.
yeah.
Companies were writing scripts.
Yes.
What was it called? Two Brothers Keurig Cup?
No. I think it's actually called Two Brothers, though.
I'm just like, I'm trying to get a reaction. I'm like, if a comedian even smiles, it means so much.
Such a win.
He can laugh at all the shit I say. I'm just like, it's dumb shit. I get fucking.
I should just laugh some, but I'm nervous.
No, but so yeah, getting into acting would be pretty fun and pretty cool. There's a couple different things I'm looking to maybe get into more. Doing some parody and satire writing as well.
Yeah, it's a good thing. Like segue into actually writing. I mean,
yeah, I mean just to be able to do more things that are less comedy based, but still have that comedy twist to them. You know,
Cool.
Possibly different career path along with that, just depending and stuff. You know,
my uncle is a director and he does writing and he puts comedy in everything he does. And that's a huge fucking win. Like I get the amount of traction that he's gotten in his career. He's literally a hero of mine. Shout out Bob Rice. He's fucking awesome. But he literally does comedy. He makes ads funny. It's like, how do you make a fucking ad for a car funny? And he finds ways.
You write. So the method of what you do versus maybe like an unsuccessful or a comedian that's hasn't reached their peak and
I haven't reached my peak yet though.
No one. It's always a journey.
But so they're all kind of like clustered into one, right? So if you go to Hollywood, they'll go, you're going to be a comedian, you're going to do model shots, you're going to do all these things, right? Like you have to kind of do this broad spectrum of things. So if you get taken from one, you can eventually like funnel it down into what you really want to do, right?
Right.
Which for you right now is comedy.
Right.
Distill.
Yeah, Distill, there we go. Way better. But where I was going with that is like, do you ever think of going outside of what you've written, you've acted? What would be something else that you would do that would go outside of like your comfort zone or outside of this to like distill it still into comedy?
Like underwater basket weaving.
Yeah. Is there anything that you're like, I would do this? For me, it's I'm a graphic designer, but anything I do, I'll do like flyers for other people to get me more graphic design things. Is there anything like that with you?
Yeah, I mean, when I went to school and I got my degree in communications, one thing we did was learn how to do like press releases and stuff. And most people in comedy don't know how to do press releases. And it's pretty simple stuff, but it's something that I have put out myself. Like, hey, if anybody wants, like, I've had friends who live here now, but then they're going to go back to their hometown and do some shows. So they want, maybe to like, gather more, friends or family to come there. So then they put in the effort to, oh, you want a press release to like send to the local newspaper? I mean, you're going to want like a photo with this and all this other stuff. But reality is like, there's just certain things like that. So
tried and true ingredients that go into those things that actually achieve the best, most efficient.
Exactly, because you want to be able to promote what you're doing, and that's part of it. So, but I mean, as far as branching out and stuff like that, I mean, everybody kind of wants to do podcasts and stuff like that, but I can't really find the time in my schedule to do a successful podcast. So that's why I just appear on them. That's why I just appear on them and stuff like that. I appear, and then they eventually get like a little bit of the Chillstrom boost is what I call it.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. And by the way, when I say that, it's been not proven at all, but I'm just throwing it out there as like, hopefully in the universe, people like, like the Chillstrom boost. Like,
you know what? I'm watching it.
Do you have any favorite podcasts? Like, what are you listening to? Everybody's listening to them these days.
Well, definitely this podcast is my favorite one right now.
Motherfucker didn't hear this until I said, hey, you need to be a guest on it. But
no, I started following you guys on Instagram and Facebook like right away.
Gotta follow the cult.
Hell yeah.
What are you listening to though? Or watching. Some of them even have like YouTube.
Yeah, to be honest with you, I don't really listen or watch a lot of podcasts just because with work and then also with comedy and stuff, I don't necessarily get a good amount of time just to sit down and listen to stuff. But I I mean, there's the Joe Rogan podcast is very funny. Your Mom's House is very funny.
So good.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. We going back to that?
No,
No.
it's a thing. It's with Tom
Yeah,
Segura.
Tom
his wife.
Segura.
They named it after it. Correct? Your mom is it?
Well,
I feel like you should have known this before. I mean,
no background.
That's
We did
huge.
none of
Yeah,
this.
I mean-
I don't know your mom's house. I have no idea.
yeah, Your
but
Mom's
I
House.
mean,
Yeah, Tom
that's
Segura and
your
his wife,
fucking mom's house. Like that's.
Christina P. And
Yeah,
it's very funny. It's very successful too.
I'm
mean,
just saying. Like I mean, I was catching heat from the mom joke before, but I mean, if they named their whole show after it,
Yeah,
that's
and
fucking
then
relevant.
then I'll listen to a little bit of like the Fighter and the Kid, which
Oh,
is
that's
Brian
good.
Callen and Brandon Schaub. So because Brandon Schaub is getting into comedy now, which
It's kind of okay. So what do you think of that? Because I follow all the things that you're listening to as well as like Theo Von does a bunch, Chris D'Elia. There's this kind of group of them, like a pocket of comedians. And Brendan Schaub was a UFC fighter. He's getting into comedy,
right.
because everybody around him is a comedian.
Mhm.
How do you feel about that? Not specifically him, but people that are pulled into something that's not their forte, that they're not known for.
Right. So everybody I talk to that has moved to LA or started in LA or whatever, like LA and Hollywood, you have to have something other than acting. So a lot of them are trying to be actors, but then they need something else to go along with that. So if you're a pretty face, you got to be a model. If you can
Sure.
sing even a little bit, you got to at least still put out a few songs or whatever. But if you have the ability to at least get up on stage and say some words, you have to be a stand-up then. And so I don't mind it because it's still giving a good light onto stand-up as a whole.
Sure.
However, when some of those people who are trying to be actors then start getting breaks in comedy because some of them who are trying to be actors, they're generally the pretty face, but they don't want to they don't want to be a model, and they can sing, but they don't want to be a singer. So, I can get up on stage, and so I'm just gonna try this. But when they start getting traction as a stand-up,
Right.
and now they think that they're funny,
no.
and everybody I talk to is like, no, that person's one, a dick, two, not funny. And then when they get these breaks, now they have this ego behind them where now they're insufferable. And I mean, again, this is all hearsay. I don't know a lot of these people, but there is that thing where when you have those other avenues and you're trying to get into stand-up. When I first heard Brandon Schaub was trying to stand up, I immediately thought to myself, he should not be the one doing stand-up.
No,
Because
I still think that.
No, I mean,
I'll say it straight up. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
never going to meet the guy. It seems like a nice dude, but
Yeah.
not funny at all.
Yeah, in my-
Comparably to all the other people he's
Right.
around, not at all.
exactly. And in my mind, you're doing it because you already have that name recognition.
Absolutely.
And I was literally telling somebody that I work with, we were at an outside event or whatever, and we were hanging out, and he was asking me about comedy, and even talking to some other comics. Comedy as a whole, a lot of times it's like professional wrestling, where as a professional wrestler or getting into that scene, you don't have a name recognition behind you. So you're trying to build that like locally in your area and then branch out to these other areas. So it's the same thing where I have to build a fan base before I become popular. And then I hope to God when I start expanding outward, people are then starting to follow me and become fans of mine. So then I can get booked in those areas more. But it's not where if I just say release a song and then I can just start marking that song out to different markets where I can possibly get booked. It's literally I have to work to gain the fans here, and then I got to gain the fans in, say, Milwaukee, and then in Chicago or Omaha or Des Moines or something
There's
like
a
that.
certain current that happens as well, though.
Right.
Like I mean, when you start gaining the level locally, that's going to spread. Just
Right.
because, I mean, social media is a huge, avenue for that and stuff.
Exactly. And so to utilize it properly and stuff like that obviously is to your benefit, like with YouTube or Twitter or anything like that. But the reality is like you have to gain fans so you can then gain more fans.
Right. Right. And that's what you're saying.
And that's the hardest thing is to get the initial booking is cool, but you still need to like still do more and more and more. And so when you already have that name, now people are just going to come because you're that name. And
Right.
and that's the hardest thing is we're like, God, like I wish I had a name before this, man.
Building
Like,
the rep.
So
kind of thing.
I like that. I mean, I like that, whether you're a comedian or whether you're an actor or people come out to see you, right? They come out because it's your name, whether you're a musician or whatever. But I've never liked I'm doing this because other people are doing this.
Right.
So for you, when obviously butts and seats equal money equals bigger, audience and
Right.
bit more marketing and stuff. If you had a perfect audience though, would it be people that are open-minded and they're just like, I'm just going to genuinely see what this guy has to offer because I love comedy? Or would it be the people that are just like, 2 times or 3 times the amount of people that are just like, I'm going because Karen gave me this ticket, or,
Karen.
like,
Right.
but you know what I mean? Like, that's where I'm always torn, is like, you want a lot of people there and you want your exposure out there.
Right. I would take both. I mean, if Karen gave a ticket to somebody, or
Fucking right, Karen.
yeah, like, more power to them, and I love that fact. If I have people who are in the audience who just genuinely like comedy and they want to see who's out there or who's doing that show, that's great. And that's, again, what, like the Acme open mic especially, it's just people who are there. It's a free show on Mondays, and a lot of times you just get people who want to see what comedy
so
is being.
good.
Yeah. And so when you're there and you're doing it, and people are seeing a wide variety of different comics that night. I mean, you're seeing a lot of people who are brand new, and that's probably their first time ever doing comedy. And then you see a lot of people who are, still at like open mic level or host feature, but they're not an Acme comic or like a regular there, so they're not getting like the 5-minute spots. You get the 5-minute spots, or people who are working there, or people who are possibly getting looked at, or people that they know in the scene where, okay, this person's been working hard, so let's give them 5 minutes here and there or whatever. And then there's like the 7-minute comics, but like it's a build, so like that whole audience is still wanting to see comedy, and they're open to what's going to be said on stage. And I would rather have that than, because it's almost always packed too, but to have that and then they're just open to who's going to be there, that's fantastic.
Perfect scenario.
Yeah.
I was gonna say,
Dane Cook.
so Dane Cook. That's actually exactly what I was looking at. Chris just typed in, what do you think of Dane Cook, and where did he go? Chris is also a
He
guy.
had a comeback, though.
Yeah, Chris is a
Yeah.
guy who lives under a rock. I know that's overly used term or explanation of somebody, but no joke, Chris lives under a goddamn rock.
You know what? I liked him when he came out. Had every CD. Thought he was hilarious.
Right.
Then I heard he was stealing other people's work, and then he got into acting, and now it's like he's gone.
Right. So he's not gone per se. I don't mind Dane Cook. It's a different style than what I would do. He does have a tendency to be a little louder, and sometimes loud comics are booked because there's still a reaction to them.
Right.
And sometimes it's funny, sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's kind of like, okay, but like a nervous laugh is still a laugh.
Right.
Sure.
And so I don't mind Dane Cook. When I heard all the stuff about him stealing jokes or whatever, and that happens to a lot of people who get fame. And he got fame pretty quick. Like, that was the thing. Like, he was only about
crazy.
like 4 years into doing it, and he started. That's when he did
Packing
like his,
auditoriums.
yeah, Comedy Central Presents, which is like a 30-minute thing, and then but they record it, and it's like a 45-minute CD that they have then of his stuff, and I have that CD too. But
Was that Retaliation, or when was that?
no, that was, I don't know. It's
Whatever.
I don't remember what the CD is called, but
He came in hot, like you're saying. Yeah,
yeah. So, but it was a lot of high energy, it was a lot of high volume, and it was a lot of just. It was more of a show than it was a comedy specific show. So you kind of went to see him for the spectacle of it, and which is fine. And there's a lot of people who make careers off of spectacles. Would it be right to say that he was a comedian right from the start? No, I mean, he was definitely more somebody who was playing around with the boundaries of it, if you will. But he is still doing comedy. He's in LA now. I have seen some shows of friends of mine that they'll put out the flyer for a show that they're doing in Hollywood, and he's on that show with them. And more power to him, like, to actually make a go of it again with his own stuff. I mean, once you're kind of caught stealing jokes, then it's really hard to come back from that. But some people can just kind of live in that zone. I mean, I was asked by a guy who was a music booker, and he was booking stuff out at St. Croix Casino in Turtle Lake, and he asked me about if I knew anybody who would be willing to open up for a comic. And I asked, well, who's the comic? And he tells me it's Carlos Mencia. I was like, well, probably no one, because he's going to steal all their material. And I said, I mean, I would be willing to do it, but I go, that's also a guy who says he can do it an hour and a half by himself, so just let him do an hour and a half by himself. And he's like, well, there should be a supporting act. I go, comedy's not like that, man. If the guy says he can do an hour and a half, and he'll sell out that room because people know him from at least the fact that he had a show on Comedy Central.
Yep.
So I said, you might as well just book him by himself, man, because nobody's going to want to help out with that.
Do you have a set amount of time where you're more comfortable? Like, do you have a, 5-minute thing? People, they'll do open mics and they'll get like a 5-minute limit, a 10-minute limit, things like that.
Yeah.
Versus like doing a half an hour or 45 minutes or things like that. What's your zone that you like would be ideally living in if you could?
If I could right now, I'd be at that 20 to 30 minute feature level on a regular
With it being
basis.
stories and stuff, you need a little bit more time to kind of tell them.
I mean, some people wouldn't believe me as far as if other comics were listening to this or watching this or whatever. And when I say that I have probably like about an hour and 45 minutes of material, I mean, I could do an hour 45-minute show. It would not be good, and I would not have the moxie, if you will, to really want to do it. But if I could live in that 30-minute zone, 20 to 30-minute feature zone, that would be great right now because I have the material and I can change it up even nightly, where it would work between who's in the audience, stuff like that. So about 30 minutes is about where I should be. I can even 45 minutes is pretty doable.
So you said you primarily make jokes that are like kind of a story, right? They're specific with your life. And I have to imagine most of those aren't going to be able to be told well in 4 or 5 minutes or 2 minutes or whatever, right? Like it takes a little bit of time to kind of get them involved in it. When you go up for like open mics, a lot of those are very short. So how do you like condense that, or do you partition off your jokes into different styles where it's like this will be crowd play, this will be the short stuff if I'm going to do like an open mic or just something kind of on the fly, and these are like my guts, the longer stories, the 5, 10, whatever minute stories.
Right. So with all that, you do want to piece it together. There's been times I'll just go up and I kind of just want to mess with the audience or the crowd. So I'll do like some crowd work stuff and whatnot. It's not always the best. You kind of want to go in with a plan and stuff, but open mic sets, a lot of times you're just trying to get going on the material or trying to work it out. And so I'll try and do a few stories if I can, even like a 3-minute spot at Acme and stuff. You can still get a good story in.
Give us a 3-minute wrap. Give us a 3-minute wrap up bit. This is open mic to close it out with.
This is not open mic.
This is an open mic.
Dude, this is I would hate this. I've heard so many other comedian podcasts that are like, oh, you just want me to be up there like telling you a joke at a bar with no fucking mic, with no audience, with no lights, with no fucking anything, just pull up. It's like, say, hey, here you got an iPod here. Be a DJ. You're like, get the fuck out of here.
Yeah,
dude.
Exactly. You understand? Like, you can't just jump on something.
Yeah, dude.
Okay.
I mean, I know there's technically an audience here, which
Technically
is great.
there is. Yeah. I mean,
which is great.
It wasn't flying completely blind on that one.
You do have a microphone.
You're such a dick, though.
No, you're not.
Such a dick. Here's why I'm not going to do it, right? Is because I want people to come out to the shows that I have on the 19th and the 28th.
Nice. Absolutely.
He's not going to burn his 3 minutes of content, dude. He's worked 7 years
that
for these 3 minutes.
man.
Listen to the 3 minutes that he could have
Go.
done here, but you have to come to the show.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
Again, I want people to at least come out to the show
Absolutely.
and enjoy themselves. Because that's the thing. If I do it like a 3-minute here, it may not work as well in front of that audience the next time, or even the fact of like if I do it here and it doesn't go well, now I'm some like. You guys all heard that nothing? You guys all heard that nothing?
Right. But also, like, I completely agree with you. Fuck Kagan.
I'm not a live performer. I'm just randomly off the side. That's
but I
where
do
it came
think
from.
like you, especially as like a performer, you read your crowd.
Right.
If your crowd is one person, it's going to be a very difficult read, right? Because people go off of like what that guy's moving, that guy's giggling a little bit. This is what I always say. I'm not a comedian. I'm not funny. Sometimes I got sparks that are kind of humorous. But it's like going to a movie. When you watch that movie by yourself, you're not in the theater going, "Wah!" For the most part, you're not doing that. You're like, that was funny. Oh my God, that was awesome. You've seen the movie more than once. You see it with your girlfriend or something like that, and you're laughing. You've already seen it. You already know what's going to happen, but you're laughing again. And sometimes you're laughing even harder because you prepared for it, right?
Right.
It's kind of like that with comedy. You have to know your audience. Like there's so many different like aspects to it where it's not just like, hey, there's 2 people here. Let's fucking, Anyways, maybe a horrible explanation, but that's what I was thinking.
I mean, if I've done shows in front of 2 people and they genuinely do not go well, but those 2 people are genuinely there to have fun and be part of the experience. So I try to give a good show.
Yeah.
Does it work? No, not really. because it's just two people, so you can't really get a good vibe for them. I mean, it would be the same thing if like two people showed up to any show you're doing. You're like, crap, like two people. I mean, how are you supposed to get like any kind of energy going from them or any good response from them? And that's the same thing as a comedian that you don't want two people, but I mean, and again, nothing against our audience here of literally two people, but I'm not
I
trying
feel like
to
they'd be good laughers.
Two
though.
girls that are just like, fucking entertain
I
us.
feel like they would be good laughers.
right.
But
I don't-
anyway, so like, where are you going,
I don't
dude?
think these girls know.
Where's the show that you were gonna drop here? Where is that gonna be? Let the audience know.
Oh, here we go. Yeah. We mentioned in the beginning of the podcast, he's
Yeah.
got a couple shows actually coming up.
Yeah, so March 19th, it's a Thursday after St. Patrick's Day, and this is probably the only reason I got booked because that guy with the red hair is definitely a fucking Irishman. It's
You could bring some of those Irish muffins out there. You can bring them the cupcakes.
The cupcakes?
Yeah.
Yeah, no thanks. March 19th, Thursday, comedy night at Birch's Lower Town. That is a showcase. I think there's going to be 5 other people on that as well. So with Gabe Noah as the headliner, and then March 28th, New Hope Cinema Grill opening for Tim Bedore. So that's going to be fun. I got some other dates in April and stuff too. But yeah, come to those. Follow me, like I said, on Twitter and Instagram at Tom Chillstrom, or then Facebook. Just type in Tom Chillstrom. You're going to be able to find me. So
Nice.
And letting everybody know, we have, hopefully Tom can make it to it as well. We have an event that's coming up on April 3rd. It's Friday, April 3rd. It's at Conga Latin Bistro, and it's called Event Uno. It's going to be primarily music-based, but we're going to be doing these events hopefully every month. And we're going to take the people that have been on the podcast and people that are in that genre and kind of just get them to go to an event and network. You know, like I said, we didn't know that there was 300, 200 comedians in the state, and the only way we know is through a comedian. So we want to accommodate that, or we want to.
The network is going to be
we want to
real.
build this network. So it's going to be music based. Some of the guests actually we have are Mr. Black. We have Strange Love, Lucy Lux. I'm trying to think who else we've got here. We've got me and Charlie Landa are going to be playing. We'll be doing a DJ drummer collaborative, and on that, it's going to be producers that are in the building. So it won't be me playing my own music. It will be anybody that's submitted music that we think is going to work, and we'll just do like kind of a live performance and a mashup, if you will. We also have Fresco, Christian Baca, who is a past guest as well, Whiteout, 10K, Enrique Franco, and Soulful Trist. So again, that's going to be from 9 to 2 at Conga Latin Bistro.
The creative called at the Conga Bistro.
Yeah,
Latin
and it's going to
Bistro.
be free. So
Conga
all you have
Laga.
to do is follow us on Instagram at Creative Cult Pod and follow us on Spotify, the Creative Cult Podcast. Show them at the door and you get in for free. But we appreciate you guys spending your time with us. Again, this is Sunday we're recording this. It's a beautiful day out. So I think we're going to go enjoy that. And thank you so much, Tom, for being a
thanks
guest.
for having me, guys. This is a lot of
This
fun.
is episode
Appreciate
6, and we look forward to episode 7 with you guys. Have a good week.